Hey guys, so welcome back. This is going to be the grammar portion of, again, still Unit 5, Lesson 1, so like the house vocab that we were doing. This is going over specific verbs that we have actually had, as in you practiced them quite a bit in Spanish 1. We reviewed them again towards the beginning of this year in the first month or so of school again, but we're using it here one more time just because it is kind of a difficult concept to grasp, as in they both mean the same thing. It just depends on what you're trying to say context-wise for you to use the correct spelling. And it works well with the situation, as in this chapter, because we're talking about where things are located again, and places, because people are talking about like different places in a house that they might be, as in I'm in the kitchen or the room, or I'm in a house versus an apartment, so describing locations. So I'm going to go over this. I am going to do a little bit of like note practice, as in I'll give you guys some notes and type them up for you so you can see what I mean with it, that I'm hoping will help you remember when you use one over the other. So thinking back to what you covered in Spanish 1 and in this review, if you didn't have me, or if you didn't have me last year and you only had me this year, the way I usually explain how to use ser versus estar, since they both mean the same thing, which is to be, is that ser is more of a permanent description or a permanent verb that you are using in that description of something, as in if you're tall, if you're nice, if you're a girl, if you're intelligent, whatever you're describing as. Estar, so the second way that you still say to be, is more of a current happening situation. So it is more temporary, just because currently I could be in the room, or currently I could be hungry, currently I could be sad, but then that changes much more frequently versus than like me being tall. I can't exactly really change that. So it's a little different. They both mean to be though. So I'm going to go through what the book says first, then I'm going to show you guys another more specific way to kind of help you figure out which one should I be using in this situation. So this is on page 253. It's the presentación de gramática, specifically on ser or estar. Which one am I going to use? So ser and estar both mean to be. How do you know which one to use? Yes, estar is technically blue here, but we've had this verb for forever. It's just that they're using red for ser and blue for estar, but they're both technically old verbs. You use ser when you're talking about origin, as in where you were born / where you are from. So yes, I could move houses today, and then again tomorrow I could move like complete states, even countries. But I can't change where I was like from, where I was born. So even if I move every single day of my life, I'm still originally going to be born in LA. I can't change that. So that's like a permanent description that will have to stay permanent, right? So this is an example of why you use ser. You use ser to indicate origin, as in where you or something, because it could be that like I got a certain clothing item from Target. I can't say that I got it somewhere else. It originated from Target. So you use that to describe origin. An example is like, soy de Quito. I'm from Quito, a certain location, or a city, I should say. You also can use ser to describe personal traits and like physical characteristics. Yes, physicality can change. So I could dye my hair. I could like get contacts and my eyes look different. I could change the way I physically look, as in lose weight, gain weight, but it's not as easy to really change, so it's considered a more permanent description. So examples here is los estudiantes son inteligentes. So that's not even a physical characteristic, that's a personality trait. And so yes, you could be a more mean person, right? And then kind of change and you end up being nicer, or vice versa. But it's just considered a more permanent description because it's not as like easily changed. Same with physicality, it's not as easily changed. Ser is also used to indicate professions, so like careers or jobs. Yes, you can change jobs or careers, right? But again, it's not as often changed, and it's not really a temporary, at least you wouldn't, I would assume, consider your job to be temporary. It's not that like for these 5 minutes I'm going to be a teacher, even if it's only for a year or if it's for a few months, you kind of lived that and it was your like actual job, I guess you could say, for some time. So because you kind of live that life, it's going to be a more permanent description. So in this case, la señora Ramirez es maestra. She is a teacher. We're going to be using a conjugation or specific verb spelling of the verb ser. So remember, you can use ser to identify people or things and to give time and dates. So although time is literally constantly changing, every middle of the day will always be 12 noon, right? Yeah, that can't really change. Every morning will always have, depending on what time you wake up, right? Like a 5, 6, 7, whatever time is the morning. That will always be that. Yes, it'll change as in it's no longer 7, it's 7:01, or it's no longer 7 on a Tuesday, it's 7 on a Wednesday, but it's still going to be 7, if you know what I mean. So you use ser for time, even though it's technically like constantly changing. Estar is the second verb. So again, still means to be, but these are a bit more temporary or describing a current like situation in time. So for estar, it's used to indicate location as well. When you guys first went over it, it was in, I think it was like unit 2. It was like towards the middle of the Spanish 1 year, so like towards the middle of the first month of school. You used, in that case, estar to describe locations because you had prepositional phrases like under, behind, next to, and like places at school. So you had like I'm in the bathroom, I'm in the classroom, I'm in the library, but emotions as well, because like I mentioned towards the beginning of the video, you could currently be sad, you could currently be tired, and that most likely changes. So same sort of idea here. It's used to describe locations, except here in this chapter, it's not just a person location, but an object location too, as in my backpack is in the living room, the food is in the kitchen, my dog is in the garden, right? Whatever you're describing and the location it's in. So in this case, you're describing a location and then where, like city, where that city is. So it's saying Quito es en Ecuador, or está en Ecuador. So even I mess up. Quito is a specific city, and you're saying that it is in Ecuador, so it's a location. So because we're using it as a location, even though Quito, the city, can't get up and move, so it's like a permanent location it will always have, it's talking about a location, so that automatically puts it in the estar category. That's just how it is. So if it's a location, automatically you will know I have to use estar. Just like if you talk about where something originated from, automatically you talk about it as a ser. That's just like a rule of thumb. Estar can also be used to describe conditions. So kind of like a different way of describing feelings, but like a condition. So it's not so much that I'm like happy or angry. It's more of like I'm sick, or I just like I don't feel good, or I'm in pain because like I hurt something. So like a certain condition that maybe your body might be in. So estar to describe conditions, and of course feelings. So if it's physical, like ¿Cómo estás? How are you physically? I could say estoy bien, like I'm good, I'm healthy, I'm not cut anywhere, I'm not in pain anywhere, so I'm good. Emotionally, I could say estamos contentos, or we're happy, so that's an emotion. Or estamos enojados, we're angry. Estamos irritados, we're irritated. We had quite a few emotions from that last chapter. Here you have just like examples of what they were, but you guys know old vocab will always be reused. So this is what the book shows you as. As in, ser is used for like origin and more permanent situations. Estar is used for more temporary, as in current feelings or conditions that you're involved in, or an item might be involved in. Like I currently have a new phone, but then in of course like a couple of months it won't be new anymore because something else will be out. So that's a current condition. It's currently new, not going to be new forever. And locations, as in where you or objects or things might be located. The best, I think, way to remember this is using 2 different acronyms. And I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to type it up on a Google Doc for you. It's easy to remember when to use what. If you, like, when you're looking at the sentence you're filling in or whatever you're trying to say, if you look at it and you think of the context. Is the sentence talking about a certain type of idea? It tells you which one you should use. If it's talking about a different version, which I'm showing right now, then you're going to use the second version. So I describe it as learning pretty much what the words stand for. So we're going to be looking at the word doctor. I'm typing it up. There you go. And this is going to be considered for the verb ser. And it kind of makes sense, because if you're talking about, I'm going to tell you that it still means to be, because it obviously means to me. To be, I mean. When you're talking about ser, kind of like the example the book gave you, it means, or it can also fall under like a a profession or like a career. Remember, I think the sentence said like Senora Ramos or something. Es maestra, they're a teacher. So a doctor is another career, right? It's a profession, so it would fall under the said category automatically. There's more specifics than just like, oh, it's a job, or oh, they're from this person or this place. So doctor stands for something. The first one is a description. So if that's like a personality, or if it's like a physical trait. I misspelled that. That's my bad. If it's a physical trait, you're going to be using that sort of description. For O, that's what they gave you in the book. That's like an origin. So if you forget what that means, it's like where from, like where it originated. C is similar to what the description is. However, a description, I should put like adjectives up here in general. So it's not just personality, because you'll be describing things as well. Adjectives, personality, it's a physical trait. I'll make this smaller so that it's not being thrown off into a second little line, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of like that. I don't like when things get out of order than what I planned. So ignore me as I fix this. By the characteristics, what that is like how someone or something is characterized, as in the way it acts or the way it looks. So it's similar to the description, but this is like when you're giving something specific about that person's character or that thing's character, right? It might be like my dog who's like very excited or angry or hyper or something like that. So you're describing a characteristic that thing, or like my phone is like super fancy or something, super high tech, something that it holds. So now it's all big. There we go. Look at that. I already knew. So it's going to be a characteristic. So something that describes like the character of person. So more people related, or I guess animal related, than item related. That a little bit smaller. There we go. Second, and we did mention this one in the book, it goes over time. So I'll give you an example of this one so you know exactly what it is. We went over how you change the phrasing in front of a time that you're talking about. Like you say es la for if it's 1 to 1:59, or son las for 2 to 12:59. Won't matter. It's going to still fall under the same ser chart. So if you say es la 1:05, or if you say son las 3:20, it's still a conjugation from the verb ser. So I'll give you both of those. Oops. Hopefully you guys know what our times there are. I think I changed the second one, that's fine. I think I said 20 at the beginning and now I said 15. Next you have another O. So it doesn't matter the order, as in if you think this one down here should be origin and this one appears the second one, same thing. But we're going to be looking at occupations. So that would be, of course, jobs. So like we mentioned, the Senora Ramos one, she is a maestra. That is her job. She is a teacher. So for you guys, soy estudiante, right? I'm a student. Any sort of job that you have, a responsibility that you have, something that you consider yourself to be, although you probably have a bunch of different jobs that you're in charge of, then that would be considered a ser, because you're kind of describing aspects of yourself and your life. Last one is a relationship. And I don't just mean dating. That's just like a relationship you have, or objects, right? Because you could be describing objects. That's completely the same like word you'd be using. But describing the relationship to something else. As in, yo soy hija. I'm a daughter. Yo soy amiga. I'm somebody's friend. Or if something is related, somehow connected, think of it that way. Think of it as a connection. If something is connected to you or to something else, right? Like, el libro es de español. The book is the Spanish book. It's connected to my Spanish class, not to my history class. So think of them as connections. For example, yo soy hija. I'm a daughter. That's my connection, right? So technically, yes, it's a relationship, as in I have somebody who is my mother and my father, but it's just how I'm connected to a certain person or a certain thing, depending as to what you're trying to describe. So these would be how you know if you should be using the verb ser. So if I gave you a sentence in English, because all of them in English will have the same word, they're going to have is or are. So if I say my sister is tall, we would have to know that in Spanish, I would have to say the word es versus está, because I'm describing a physical trait from her. Right? It's a description of my sister. My sister is tall. So mi hermana es, that's what you're using here, alta. If I was describing, we already did a time one because I gave you examples there. If I was describing an origin from something, mi carro es de Nissan. My car is from Nissan. It was created / built and sold by Nissan. I can't change where it's from. It's from Nissan. Or if I got my car from Craigslist, right? I can just say, mi carro es de Craigslist. I bought it off of Craigslist. That's where it originated for me. Of course, it probably went through a bunch of other people, but I'm just saying, that's where that origin came for me. Or for my car in that case. So if you come across a sentence and it falls under one of these categories, you will be using the ser chart. That's soy, eres, es, somos, sois, even though we don't use it very often, and son, which is what we do use. The second option will be estar. Now I'm going to just make a new page for it. For estar, now they're too small. Let me make this bigger. It's still going to mean to be, so that's not exactly changing for you. And the way I have you guys remember that you're going to be using it for this is using the words, or the letters I should say, place. They're going to mean something else. I'll make them bigger just because our word's pretty small. That'll work for me. Place is what we talked about, a location. And estar falls under the location category, as in why you're using the verb. So you might think that P stands for place. It actually doesn't. It's from the first thing that you guys learned. So it stands for a position. Examples, I'm not going to do them in Spanish because I'm hoping you guys remember. Next to, under, behind, etc. Right? You have quite a few. So if it's a position of something, as in it's next to something, it's far away, it's under, whatever it might be, then you're looking at a position of it. Second one is what you were probably thinking the person was. A location, capital O. There you go. So that's an actual place that you're mentioning, as in a room, town, part of a house. I'm thinking of the words that you'll be using in this chapter. So as long as it's a certain location that person or that thing is in, as in my house is in this part of town, or my certain object is in this room or in this part of the house, then you're going to be looking at estar because that's its current location. Where is it currently? In the bathroom or whatever you're doing. Next one, we've kind of touched on it, not so much, and we're going to do this later. That's why we're learning about it now. But it falls under an action, as in something that's currently happening. I'll make it smaller later. So action, action that's currently happening, as in, even though we haven't done this, like I said, playing something, or running. So think ing. That's basically the hint that something is currently happening, right? If I am reading, if I am typing, if I am teaching, this is currently happening. So we're going to get to the ing spellings later this year. So obviously we're going to get to that. It's not going to do that. I'm going to make it even smaller. I'm sorry. You guys kind of saw me type it up. Okay, I'll take that. But it's something that's going to currently be taking place, which is why once it's done taking place, it's temporary, right? So it won't exist. Then yes, that is the correct choice because it's not going to be there forever. It's just currently happening. This next one we've kind of mentioned. It fits with the condition that we mentioned, as in it might be the condition of our body, like the condition of your heart, if you want to say. So condition and emotion are, that's the last, the E. They're similar. It's just that one of them might be like health related, or like if something is new or old, and the other one is more like happy, sad, tired, hungry, things like that. So examples of that are new, old, hurt, you haven't had this word yet, or healthy, broken, right? So things that like give you a description technically of a physical aspect of something, or a person, because you could have a broken, healthy, hurt blank for a person too. Emotion is more just like straight feelings. So that's actual like feeling. So sad. I don't know what to do to make it a little bit different. Sad, happy, scared. I don't think you guys had the word scared actually. That's miedo, to be afraid of something. You will have it soon though, because we're going to go over a roller coaster / amusement park verb list, and we're going to have like scared of stuff. I hate roller coasters. So that's just like a hint for later on. So you have two words that mean the same. Depending on the thing that you are trying to describe, or like the meaning that you're trying to get across in your information in the sentence that you're creating, you have to know which one to choose. So think of it this way. You come across a problem or something like that you're filling out or answering, or you're just trying to come up with on your own, like a bubble or anything like that, a speaking activity. Automatically ask yourself, would this fall under doctor, or would it fall under place? And as long as you know what the words stand for, you're like, okay, so is it a location? No. Is it going to be a condition? No. Or yes, maybe, depending on what you're trying to answer. Then you'll know which one it falls under and which your answer should be, or what verb you should be using. So we're going to come back to this. Usually I will remind you, hey, use Setter or Stat, use your doctor or place to help you with this activity, but hopefully the more you do it, it becomes more second nature, and you remember when you do what, technically. So we're going to come back to this. Believe me, it's not like, make sure you know it by this time, because we've gone over it before. We're going to always go over this, but I'm hoping that this new, like, specific breakdown, as in doctor and place, gives you more of a better chance of getting the correct one, because you have more of like a streamlined category to put something under, so that you know which one to choose. So we're going to keep working with it. I'm going to leave you guys with these two. I do recommend, if you need to rewatch the last half of this video to get your words down, to do that, just because of course the video will always be online, but it's nice for you to have your own little version on the side too. So I'll stop you guys here. Next thing we'll do is ordinal numbers, and I'm gonna film that for you right now too. All right, I'll see you guys in class.